Podcast. There were some rule changes that came out coming up for the 2023 season. They're kind of mixed, I would say. The three big rule changes are there's now going to be a pitch clock, the base sizes are bigger, and there's now the shift ban, as we have referenced. We'll start off with the bigger bases. There's not really much to say about this other than the base distance has decreased from 90 feet to like 86.5 feet, I believe is what the new distance is now.
Yeah.
Supposedly, this is supposed to help prevent injuries, but there's also trying to promote more stolen bases, I guess, is kind of what they're hoping comes out of this. Seems like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like a necessary rule change, I guess, from what I would think, if that makes sense. Yeah. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I think the reduction that we've seen in steals in recent years have been more for injury prevention. Like I know with Mike Trout and the Angels, he tore that thumb ligament. I think it was actually ulnar collateral, but in the thumb, in the wrist rather than in the arm. But after that, the Angels kind of gave him the red light. They were like, no, like, limit your steals because we don't need you getting hurt stealing bases. That's not what we need you for. And a lot of teams have kind of taken that idea with a lot of their players, at least their valuable ones. And I don't really know that a bigger base is going to change that attitude. I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot more steals. Probably see some. Maybe some the pinch runner will be used a little more than in previous years, but I don't know that we'll really see a bigger increase in stolen bases. Now, injury prevention, I guess we'll see, but I don't know that we had a ton of injuries on the base paths this season, other than like jammed fingers and wrists and stuff. Like that stuff's going to be hard to avoid anyway, even with a bigger base. But I don't know that like takeout slides or takeout slides. A bigger base isn't going to change that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, another thing too with this, I guess I actually even forgot to write this in my notes, but the MLB is instituting pickoff limits now to the bases. Oh, okay. So I guess if you're talking about trying to increase stolen base production, it wouldn't be so much because of the bigger bases, but it's because now there's a limit on how many pickoffs you can do, which is per at bat, you can throw over to first twice, unless if the runner advances, and then from there you can throw 2 more times. It's a little, I'll admit, that one's a little ridiculous. Like, I always joked about it because if you've ever played MLB The Show, 4 pickoff moves in a row gets tiring after a while. But that's also part of the game. If you got a fast guy on the bases, you don't want him moving over, that extra 90 feet freely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of the mental game too. I mean, it wears out the runner, and the batter gets frustrated with it when he's ready. He's in the box and ready, and the pitcher just keeps going to first. He gets tired of it. The runner gets tired of diving back in. Like, there's so much that goes into it. It's more than just saving time or wasting time. It's taking away an entire part of the game, in my opinion, for the throwing up.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous thing. Like, you always joke about it, but then you see it, it's like, wait, why are we actually doing this? Yeah. Staying on pitchers, though, there's a pitch clock now, and this has been experimented with in the minor leagues. Apparently, it was very well received. So they're bringing it to Major League Baseball this year. Basically, how the pitch clock is going to work is pitchers have 15 seconds to throw a pitch to the batter with no runners on base. If a runner is on base, that time increases to 20 seconds for the pitcher to either throw to the plate or throw to a base. And then there's 30 seconds between batters. So, like, when a batter strikes out, grounds out, scores, whatever, 30 seconds are in between each batter. Violations of these rules, an automatic strike will be charged to hitters for not being in their batter's box within the allotted 15 to 20 seconds. They're encouraged to be in the box by the 8-second mark. And if a pitcher violates this rule, it'll be an automatic ball charge to the pitcher for not throwing a pitch in the allotted time. Personally, I think it's ridiculous because baseball doesn't need a clock and it's never operated on a clock. And you can always get a feel for when something is taking too long. Like, sure, there are guys who abuse having free amount of time. That's just the way it is. But to punish a whole group of players for the actions of like, I don't know, maybe 3% of the ball players. It's heinous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Why I don't really get this whole point.
Yeah, it's another part of that mental game too. Like it is gonna allow runners to time pitchers better because like when the clock's winding down, a runner, I'm not sure. I guess it becomes a dead ball when the time expires. So if a runner just decides to take off when the clock is on one, what can the pitcher do? Especially if he's wasted his pickoff moves. Like it just seems like it's all around. It's just so negative for the pitchers. Now I watched it a lot in the minor leagues this year. I went to 30 or 40 minor league games this year, and I only saw 2 or 3 violations of it. And I don't know that like the younger guys probably aren't going to have an issue with it because they're all used to it and they seem to be with the program. But the big league guys, some of the older pitchers, we're going to see some grumpy guys about it. And then on the batter side too, I saw one player who had just been called up from a lower level from the Arizona League. It was like 8th inning. They were rallying down by 2. They had runners on base, like 2nd and 3rd. And he steps out of the box to do a practice swing in between pitches. And the umpire calls him for a strike for not calling time to step out. And I guess that is something that's new with the pitch clock or the at bat clock or whatever you want to call it for hitters. But, and he got called, it was strike 3 and in the middle of the rally. Like it was such an unfortunate thing, but that was one of the 3 violations I saw on it. The other 2 were just the pitchers, but I don't think it'll be a huge issue once players get used to it. It's just going to be the older guys getting with the program.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess it's good that spring is a month long because at that point, once opening day comes around, you hope that everyone's adjusted to it by that point. Yeah. I just never have agreed with baseball having a clock. Even when I remember when they implemented the timers out in center field to like show you, oh, there's 2 minutes and a break. Even that, I was kind of like, that's a little ridiculous. We don't need that. We know that there's an inning break. It's like 90 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever. You don't need that. So,
let's make sure the umpires are paying attention for those ones.
But the umpires don't.
Yeah, right.
they don't pay attention enough, apparently. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of the pitch clock either. I just I feel like it kind of people who are pushing for pace of play, they're wanting to get less for the money they pay to get into a game. And I mean, I understand like a 4-hour game drags. I was actually at the longest 9-inning Angel game on record. And that kind of dragged. I think it was like 4 hours and 10 minutes or something. And it was a 9-inning game. So like, yeah, that kind of drags. But honestly, if I'm at the ballpark, I'm there to see a game. I'm not really sitting there timing it and worried about it. I went to a minor league game this year that was about 2 hours and 5 minutes or something. And it just didn't feel like an enjoyable game. It just felt like I got there, saw a few innings, and then the game was over. And I didn't feel satisfied at the end of the game. It just went too quick, and if that makes sense. But I've been to enough games, like, and I've been to Coors Field more times than I can count, and I've seen more games go under the 3-hour threshold than I have seen go over the 3-hour threshold. So I mean, like in Coors Field, you know how it can be over there. You score runs in bunches. Like I've been to a couple of games where an inning took an hour to complete, but then the rest of the game just flew right by. So I just don't think it's that big of an issue. I think the issue is being made out of it that's not really there. Yeah, I was at the High Desert game, that High Desert Mavericks in the Cal League. I think the final score is like 35-28, and it's because it's a wind stadium, and every infield pop fly gets pushed into the fence. But I mean, what's MLB going to do with games like that? Are they just going to start saying, "Oh, we're going to do mercy rules to speed up the games"? Like, it's baseball. Let them play. Like, you don't have to control everything.
Yeah, the fans don't want to stay. They don't have to stay.
Yeah,
Just that's the way it is. For the last rule change, this is the shift ban. We mentioned this at the beginning. What happens with the shift ban now is infielders must remain in their respective positions by the time the pitch is delivered, which means the infielders, you have to have 2 infielders on the left side of second base and 2 infielders on the right side of second base. And they have to be in the infield dirt. So there's no more of this, like, second base is playing shallow right field. Third baseman moves over to second base while the second baseman is out in shallow right. There's no more 5-man infields, nothing like that. Basically, it's keeping the players in check and keeping them where they're supposed to be. This is the one rule change that I'm okay with. And I know there's people screaming that, like, oh, well, hitters just have to adjust. And, like, you know, it should teach them to hit the ball the other way. Yeah, but if you hit a 110-mile-an-hour line drive to the pole side and the second baseman is out in shallow right, I mean, come on. There comes a point where it's like, it gets a little ridiculous. I mean, outfield shifting, that's one thing. It's normal to see a center fielder shift from, like, left to right. They don't usually play dead center. But to have a third baseman on the second base side of the infield or playing to the right side of second base, it's just that's absurd.
Yeah. I mean, I do kind of, I think the term ban may be a little extreme too, because it's not necessarily a shift ban, it's a shift limitation. Because guys can still move around, move back and forth, and they can move back to the edge of the dirt. It's just we're not seeing these extreme shifts where they're overloading one side or putting a shallow, like, fourth outfielder and things like that. And I'm kind of old school. Like, I don't like changes to baseball. I really don't like changing old rules. But this is one that I do kind of think is important for the enjoyment of the game. Just because we're seeing these guys like Gallo, who's hitting under, like, he hits bombs, but then he hits under 200. Like, and with the shift changing, or the shift limitations, we might actually see him with a decent average for a season. We'll find out. We will see. Maybe it won't make a difference. Maybe it'll come out with the same outcome, and we're all just being silly about this. But I don't have any problems with the shift change. I think that it's a good rule. I think it's going to increase offense, but also will produce more web gems for defense. I think we'll see some really great defensive plays, and I think I've heard you mention before too, it's going to help out the really athletic infielders who their calling card is defense, because teams are going to need those guys again without being able to shift into predictable spray patterns. So,
yeah, I think this is, and part of going to a game is if you see a really good defensive play, you know, that's exciting. It's exciting to see an infielder lay out and rob a hit up the middle, because that's where they're supposed to be. You know, it's not exciting when they're sitting in right field just waiting for the ball to come to them and, you know, they get the guy out. No one wants to see that. So,
yeah.